All right, so today's topic is balance your hormones. It's actually one of my favorite topics and favorite things I do at work, always helping women, especially balancing balancing their hormones. So here I am sharing this with you today. So far, we have gone over a few topics. It's an ongoing series, actually. So week one, we understood, how the thyroid works, what labs to look for, the different thyroid conditions. Week two, we talked about the different naturopathic treatments for the thyroid, including prescription medications, botanical medicines, thyroid healing foods. So I hope you're started incorporating all of that in your diet and life. Week number three, we talked about your gut health and how to find out the status of your gut health, what's causing inflammation in there, and what are the things we can do to heal your gut. Week number four, last week, we talked about how we can reduce the toxic environmental exposure from the things we have applied on our bodies, to the cleaning agents at home, to the foods that we eat. So what choices to make. All of this is important, and it goes towards your hormone health. So this week we'll get started with balance your hormones. And then you see I have 2 more weeks in this series. Next week, we are going to talk about emotional healing. And week 7, we are going to wrap up the series talking about the whole picture, talking about some cases. I'll be open for question and answers, etc. So I look at the hormones as the hormone pyramid. So base of this pyramid is your adrenal hormones. The adrenal hormones are like the gas in your car. It's the fuel that helps you keep going. The middle part of the pyramid are the thyroid hormones, which are responsible for your energy and metabolism. It's like a gas pedal. You push on the pedal and your car runs. So if you don't have enough fuel and you keep pushing the pedal, your car is not going to go anywhere. So I say this to help you understand that all of these hormones kind of work together. They build on each other. The peak of the pyramid are the sex hormones. And we're going to talk more in depth about all of these. Okay, so symptoms of adrenal fatigue. So the first topic, the base of the pyramid, I want to start talking about your adrenal hormones. And, when patients come with weight gain, especially around the mid-abdomen region, without them changing it, maybe they have more stress in their lives, certain cravings, like craving for salty kind of foods. They feel lightheaded when they're standing up, or they have some mood irritability or mood changes. If they get tired after exercise, rather than the exercise helping them, give them more energy or stabilize their mood, it's making them more tired. That could be a sign of adrenal fatigue. They could have difficulty getting their day started. So morning fatigue, they can be overly emotional and they can have a tendency to get sick easily. So if you're someone who is experiencing any of these symptoms, then it would be a good idea for you to have your adrenal hormones checked. Now, this is a picture from my book, and I want to draw your attention to the left side of this graph, which shows your cortisol level to be kind of highest in the morning, close to like 18 to 20 that it shows here. And then it goes down as the day goes on. So that's a normal way of the way your cortisol is supposed to be. On the right-hand side, you see this graph where the cortisol is low in the morning, and then it's again low, but then after 4 p.m., you see that it's starting to kind of increase at the night. So this is one way a patient will present where they are very tired in the morning, they have difficulty getting the day started, and then they are tired, but then in the evening or latter part of the day, they start to have this energy, and then they are kind of wired at the time. So this could be a presentation of a stage of adrenal fatigue. So I want to go ahead and show you the 3 stages. So early stages, middle stages, and late stages. So what are the physical signs of early stages? Early stages, like when the stress is new, it's more acute stress. So that time, it's like a fight and flight response, you know. High stress, the patient is like running from a lion type of a situation, but not really literally, just, putting it out there. So high stress, feeling anxious, not being able to sleep, you know, they are very wired, their pulse rate or the heart rate is kind of fast, they are tired and yet wired. So when the labs are done, these people will have higher levels of cortisol, DHEA, and they may have high blood pressure and even high blood glucose. So in these stages, I use a botanical combination for my patients, which would include some of these things that are listed. Very important, the phosphatidylserine, magnolia, L-theanine, which is a very calming amino acid. Ashwagandha is actually an adaptogen. You may have heard me talking about it earlier. It is adaptogen, meaning it adapts to your body's needs. If you have lower levels of cortisol, it'll make it better. If you have too much cortisol, it'll kind of optimize it. So it's basically optimizing your levels. Now, again, I just want to remind you guys that all of this information is for your education. I wouldn't start treating yourself with any of these things. Please talk to your doctors and have the testing done and see what you need, because sometimes when people are on medications or other supplements, there can be interactions as well. The middle stage of adrenal fatigue is when the stress kind of continues. So they are in a stressful period maybe in their life, and moderate stress, they, you know, no matter what they do, they're tired, their serotonin decline. Serotonin is, you know, is one of our neurotransmitters that keeps our moods happy. So, you know, when we don't have enough serotonin, we kind of feel sad. So there are adaptogens again, like rhodiola, holy basil, eleuthero, ashwagandha, maca. These all help during this stage. And then the late stage is, you know, if there's prolonged stress and the person is in this stressful period for a long time in their life, you know, then they feel very tired, they have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, they keep waking up, very tired all times of the day, and actually they feel their pulse or heart rate, it's kind of low or slow. At that point, you know, there's decreased levels of cortisol and DHEA, serotonin, and the blood pressure. So, you know, when I showed you that graph in the previous slide, they are probably almost close to flat line. And you'll see that the B vitamins help the adrenal health and some other things listed here too. So it's important to find out, you know, where you are in one of these stages if you do have any of these symptoms. And later in today's talk, we'll talk about how you can find that out and what can be done. So this is one of my formulas called adrenal balance. It works extremely well for my patients actually. This is for actually mid to late stage of adrenal fatigue. It is not for the first stage, but you know, when patients test low on their cortisol levels, then I start them on this, and I have an incredible result most of the time. Not only physically that patients start to feel better, but also on the blood work. So moving on from the adrenals, we are now talking about menopause or the female sex hormones. So a typical time is for a woman, you know, ages between 45 to 53. But these days I see a lot of women who even go through early menopause. So when do you get yourself checked out for this? You know, if you're having any of these symptoms like the hot flushes, now hot flushes can be a sudden flush of heat that can go away, or feeling hot all the time. Women experience hot flashes differently. They may even have the night sweats at night. They are throwing away their covers. Sometimes, you know, they keep turning down the temperature. And usually this is the time when the husbands are shivering, but the women are like, you know, really feeling hot and sweating, and wake up with, you know, wet clothes almost. Irritability, you know, having mood swings, like feeling low in the day, or getting triggered easily, getting angry easily. Everyone at home knows that the woman is going through some changes. She may experience weight gain, again, you know, without any reason, like she's exercising, she's eating a good diet, but still experiencing weight gain. Osteoporosis. So as, you know, the women's hormones decline, they are more prone to osteoporosis because the bone density decreases. And one of the things that I love doing hormone replacement therapy is to, you know, prevent them from this risk of fractures. And, you know, I have seen growing up, you know, my grandma, who's right now very like healthy, touchwood, she's 94, but you know, I see women go through all these changes just thinking it's normal, which it is. It's a natural way of aging. But in this day and age, we can do something about this, you know, naturally to prevent all of this. So why not? That's what I feel. The next symptom is memory lapses, or like, you know, short-term memory loss, brain fogginess, like things like forgetting where they put their keys and, you know, things like that. Vaginal dryness is another common symptoms with the lack of estrogen. Pain during sex. Anxiety is another thing with the lack of testosterone, feeling anxious all of a sudden, life was good, and why is this anxiety coming in? Depression, as I talked about. Headaches, especially with the drop in estrogen, some women are prone to migraines. So balancing their hormones can be one of the solutions to help with that. Decreased libido, this happens from lack of testosterone. Fatigue, tired, again with the lack of testosterone, there is fatigue. And insomnia, difficulty sleeping at night, is usually related to lack of estrogen. So this is like a very common presentation and the age group of women that I see in my practice. And I want to say a lot of times it's like, you know, they complain of all these symptoms, they've had their blood work done, they've seen a doctor, and they've said, everything's fine, there is no problem, your hormones are good. So that is something I hear all the time, actually. Okay, so what do we test for in the female hormones? You know, when a woman is transitioning into menopause, how do I know that? Now, there are different ways of transitioning to menopause. One of the common definitions that was used past is like not having a menstrual cycle for 1 year. But more so now, we even rely on this FSH, which is a pituitary hormone or follicle stimulating hormone. When that number starts to stay more than 20 and higher, that tells me that a woman is entering menopause or is postmenopausal. So our pituitary gland is our master gland that sits at the base of our brain and sends signals to the different glands in our bodies to produce certain hormones. FSH is the one that's typically looking for estradiol or estrogen. So when, you know, the estrogen levels decline, this FSH keeps going up. So it's like a reverse feedback loop type of a thing. So I check for estradiol levels, and when the estrogen is dropping, FSH is increasing, testosterone is kind of low by that time, and even progesterone is low. That tells me that a woman is in menopause. And I'm going to show you some examples of the actual lab results so you can understand what I'm talking about. And symptom-wise, you know, as I said previously, the definition was if she didn't have like a cycle for 1 whole year, but everyone goes through it differently. Sometimes a woman can have like extension of time period between getting the cycles, like 2 months to 3 months. Sometimes some cycles are closer together. They may have bleeding every 10 days or so. Sometimes they have heavy bleeding, you know. Some women are prone to fibroids and things like that that may be causing excessive bleeding because of the hormonal changes that's going on. So what I'm trying to say is every person is different. So best, again, is to get yourself evaluated by your doctor and find out where you are if you're having symptoms. This is, you know, like a chart, and I like to explain like the physiology of what happens, you know. Basically, a menstrual cycle is divided into two phases, typically the follicular phase and the luteal phase. In the follicular phase, the estrogen, you know, is at its highest, and it builds the lining in the uterus. And in the luteal phase, the progesterone is higher and it acts against this lining. And when both of these hormones drop, that's when a woman will menstruate or, you know, shed this lining off. And I like to explain this is because if a woman, you know, comes to see me and chooses to do the bioidentical hormone replacement, and if she has her uterus, then I want her to know that sometimes she can spot or bleed, not always, but the reason behind it is that once you have your hormones back into your body, it's going to have this effect in your uterus, and that's why it happens. So here I want to discuss some lab results. You know, I've removed all the, you know, patient information, of course, because of privacy purpose. Now this patient, let's see, this is from February on the left side of this year to May of this year. And when she came to see me, her estrogen was at 67 in February. Her FSH was at 6.8. DHEA was at 58. And testosterone was at 41. And AM cortisol was at 9.4. So this is not a completely new patient to me, but she was an existing patient who, being on hormone replacement, had these results. So I kind of adjusted her hormones because she was still having some of these symptoms she was struggling with. So when she came back in May, we saw some improvement there. I'd also ordered a thyroid panel because, as I said, I like to see the hormones as a whole, like the pyramid. And I had explained how to read the thyroid results in my first talk, which is Understanding Your Thyroid. I want to also tell you that I have this YouTube channel where you can go and review the previous talks. I'm here to educate you about this information. So all of them are uploaded there and you can go and listen to them. So I want to point out that her thyroid panel looks pretty good. We had talked about the TSH being at the lower end, the free T3 and free T4 to be in good levels. I had talked about normal versus optimal levels. Now her estrogen, after adjusting, you know, went from 67 to 96. A good range, you know, with therapy I look for is between 50 to 150 on estradiol. And then we have her DHEA, which was at 58 and now it's at 62. So not much of a difference, but based on these results, I added some DHEA to her treatment plan. Testosterone was at 41 and now at 88. Now I know the lab shows that it's high, but it's not really high in my opinion. You know, in the functional range of things, she's at a much better level, and she was feeling better with that too. Her cortisol level, she's been under a lot of stress and recovering from some major surgeries. So it was at 9.4, it's at 10.8. So it's improving, but not quite there. The thyroid antibodies are negative, which is a great thing, you know, because remember, when those are high, that's what tells me that a patient is having Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Okay, this is another patient, and this is from 2019 to 2020, actually, almost a difference of a year between her results. And at that point, we had checked her estradiol and testosterone. I don't have her thyroid panel here, but I'm also treating her for that. And FSH was 36. So remember, FSH should be less than 20, ideally, you know. 36 is a little bit on the higher side. Estradiol, if the good range is between 50 and more, 15 is low. And 27 on testosterone was low. And she was having a lot of symptoms too. So after a year, when she comes to see me, her thyroid is pretty good. Again, bringing your attention to the TSH. It is okay if TSH is low as long as your free T3 and free T4 are good, as long as the patient is not having heart palpitations, jitteriness, overstimulation. So I want to mention that because a lot of times when thyroid test is ordered, only the TSH is ordered, and based on this information, a patient's medicine dose would have been decreased if nothing else was seen. But she is in fact doing extremely well and not having any adverse effects. So she's at a good place. So I want to explain that. Her FSH now is at 7.1, so it's less than 20. She is feeling pretty good. All the estrogen-related symptoms have gone. Progesterone is at 2.7. I believe she has had a hysterectomy, so she did not need any additional progesterone to be on to protect her uterine lining. And then her estradiol itself went from 15 to 75. Her test result is actually continued on the next page. Her testosterone was at 27 and now it's at 61. So when I saw her for a follow-up, she was feeling pretty good and the protocol I was doing was working great for her. So we just kind of continued it for another 6 months for her before we retest her. So now this is another example of a patient actually close in proximity from, May 21st to July 1st, very recent results. Testosterone was 5, extremely low. Honestly, guys, I'm not surprised to see such low levels when a patient is, suffering. And now the testosterone is at 73. Estradiol was less than 5, it's at 69, and her FSH, which was high at 51, is now coming down closer to 20 at 23. So she is doing good, feeling better. A lot of her symptoms are better. I recently talked to her. So that's the way of looking at the results via a blood test, which can be done through a lab like Sonora Quest and LabCorp here in Arizona. So there's also a way to check these hormones via a saliva test and a blood spot test. And during this COVID times, patients have preferred to do it this way because they've been anxious to go to the lab, and this is available for them to do as well. So for this patient, we checked her estradiol. Now you'll see the ranges on this way of testing, like the saliva testing is different from the blood testing. So just want to bring that to your attention. Being in the green zone is pretty good, but then again, there is a good green zone and a not so good green zone. There's a wide range over there. So always keep that in mind as well. Her estradiol was at 3.8, progesterone 36, but her progesterone estrogen ratio was pretty low. So I actually balanced her levels of estrogen and progesterone. Testosterone at 22, kind of low, so she was ready for her treatment. Her DHEA, which is one of the adrenal hormones, was looking pretty good. Cortisol, so on the right side, you see her cortisol results. So, this is a test where a patient will collect their saliva sample 4 times in a day, at 8 in the morning, at noon, at 4 p.m., and then at 8 p.m. So, and then this graph is kind of plotted for them based on their results. So if you see like below here, she's here in black, this black line between this orange and the blue line. So I was telling you about the flat line, the blue line indicates like extreme adrenal fatigue, and this orange line is a good high side to be in. But she kind of falls, I think her noon, evening, and night are almost flatlined over there. If you see, she was somebody who was feeling extremely tired. And based on this, I've started her on the adrenal support, and looking forward to seeing how she responds to it and what her next results come back as. And, this is the thyroid result. I also shared this with you when I was teaching you the thyroid numbers. And so we won't go much into that today. So this lab also gives you an explanation of what your hormone results mean. Now let's go to treatments. So we talked about the adrenal treatments based on the 3 different stages. This is the treatment for hormones. I'm referring to the female sex hormones. There are things that can be done with botanical medicine, homeopathy, or dietary choices, and some of the things that have worked well for patients have been red clover, black cohosh, ginseng. A lot of times patients tell me that, they tried the Astroven, which is used over the counter. They had some relief for some time, but then, going, for a while after that, it did not seem to work. And I hear that a lot too, and that's normal because the ovaries kind of stop producing the hormones. So when the hormones are low, some of these things will help you till a while where the ovaries will not produce any hormones. And at that point, each woman will have different intensity of symptoms. So some will have like major hot flashes and all of that. But then I've also seen that women who make better lifestyle choices, like with their diet, their exercise, their meditation or stress management, seem to have less symptoms. This is, my observation clinically as well. So I've mentioned some of the homeopathic remedies that can be used based on your symptoms. Your naturopathic doctor, homeopathic doctor would decide like what medicine you would need. A diet which is good for hormone balancing includes organic fruits and vegetables. Always, try to eat good amount of plant-based diet. Even if you eat, like meat, maybe reduce it or eat it not every day, probably, but eat a lot of your natural vegetables and fruits. The cruciferous vegetables particularly help the liver work better, and we know the liver is our organ that helps the detoxification, processes everything. We talked about it in depth last week, but these cruciferous vegetables help process these hormones and prevent them from building up in your system and causing adverse effects. So these include like cabbage and, broccoli and Brussels sprouts and kale and such. And healthy fats are always good for you. That's where all your hormones are made from, your cholesterol. So there was a patient I was talking to recently, and her cholesterol was down at like 117. I'm like, your cholesterol is too low. So she started laughing. She's like, but shouldn't it be low? I mean, people worry about it being high. So I said, you're right, but you need some good cholesterol levels because that is where the basis of your hormone formation happens. So, that's an important fact. I mean, you don't want it high, but you don't want it too low. Always the mid zone is pretty good. And probiotics for your gut health, we talked in depth about it in week number 3. So all of these things are essential for your hormone balancing. Some essential oils are also good to treat some of these symptoms. And the 14-day detox plan, because it helps the liver and your gut, so we look at it as a whole picture, because I also see a lot of women, who have a really bad lifestyle with not eating a good diet, not exercising, under extreme stress, extremely overweight. And then they think that by giving them estrogen and testosterone, it's going to solve everything, but really we need to focus on the whole picture. So what are the ways that I help people with hormone balancing? There are 3 methods of hormone delivery. These are all compounded, natural, and bioidentical. So let me tell you how these are different from the synthetic hormones, okay? So the synthetic hormones, like Premarin is a common one, is made from the mare's urine. That's where the name comes from, Premarin. Now, The mares or the horses have like, 50 different kinds of estrogens that as women, we do not make or use, so we just have E1, E2, and E3. So if we are constantly putting like a foreign substance into our body, which we don't really need, that does become a risk, right? It becomes a risk. And that's why there is a scare of using the hormones and the cancers, right? Because and then the women are not, allowed to use it for more than 5 years. So these are bioidentical. They come from a plant-based, like yam and soy, and made into the structure of the hormone exactly same like what your body naturally made before in normal amounts. So estradiol and testosterone and progesterone. And these are made by the compounding pharmacies. It can be dispensed in a form of cream where it's applied daily. It can be dispensed, compounded in a form of troches, lozenges, or rapid dissolve tablets. These are all same sublingually absorbed. It's not going through your GI tract, but it's sublingually absorbed. And then there is pellet therapy. The one that, we do at Sotopelli, and there are other people who do it as well, but I learned this therapy from Dr. Gino Tutera, who I have great regard for. I write about him in my book, and he was an OBGYN, extremely knowledgeable, kind, and compassionate doctor who I learned a lot. He is one of my mentors. He passed away in 2015. So these are the 3 ways of hormone delivery. This is something I shared with you maybe last week or the week before that, and I hope you are working on it, a few of you who are joining me every week. So this is like looking at the whole picture in a way where you are writing down from morning to night what you are eating, how much water you're drinking, how much sleep you're getting, how are your bowel movements, if you're practicing the golden hour, which is 20 minutes exercise, 20 minutes meditation, and 20 minutes inspirational reading. So what you do every day helps you, or, with not only your hormone balancing, but for your overall health. It's the steps that we take every single day. So just reminding you all about this. So I can help you, even online via, you can go on my website and I can help you get you set up with some of this testing and do a consultation with you. So let me show you like some of the panels that can be tested. One of them is the adrenal stress panel that we talked about, like the saliva-based test to check, your cortisol levels and your DHEA. So if you book this from the website, going to my Calendly, a kit would be mailed to you where you would collect your cortisol levels. The saliva sample is collected 4 times in the day, and you send it off to the lab. Once I receive the results, we schedule the Zoom consultation to go over the results. And this is, I have actually priced it now, which is it includes not only the price for the test, but it also includes the consultation with me. Similarly, we can do a thyroid health panel. So you can do this test at home. It's a blood spot test where you prick your finger and you collect your blood as they direct, and then the results come back and we can do a consultation over Zoom. And then there is a women's hormone panel, which not only includes the 2 test panels, which I already mentioned, but it also includes the estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, like I showed you. And this is another resource actually I started using because they offer incredible pricing to my patients, where, this is for people who do not have insurance or do not want to use insurance, and it's very affordable pricing. Ultra lab test, and basically for blood draw, you go to one of the Sonora Quest labs, which is, in Arizona, it's present everywhere. And for people who are out of the state, can use the Quest Diagnostics locations, which are very conveniently located. And you could go on this portal and look for the pricing as well. You can order your own tests, and it's extremely convenient and affordable. So with that said, I want to invite you to join my Facebook group called Feel Your Best Self. I would love to have you there. So feel free to join me. And again, thank you for listening to me today as well. Again, taking the time on July 4th to spend some time with me. And now I'll be open to some questions here, So let me stop sharing the screen. Okay. And you guys, if you have questions, you can unmute yourself and, ask me the questions. I see something in the chat. NSJ said, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, so I'm going with the initials that I see. Giving you guys some time, Yes, feel free to ask any questions.
Yes, Sandra, you mentioned one time, you could do either a blood test or a saliva test. Do you find one to be more accurate than the other?
Great question. So, for my pellet patients, Ellie, I say that the blood test seems more accurate because they are directly into your bloodstream. They are implanted into your body. When I'm using creams or lozenges, the saliva test is also good. So sometimes, when patients have their testing done, it's usually covered through their insurance, so the blood test, sometimes is more convenient for them. So I go with that. And in that case, the cortisol can only be tested when they have this. So I tell them to do their AM cortisol at 8 a.m. in the morning, which is a fasting test, because that's the time it should be kind of the highest. That's what you saw even in the examples. So there are both of these methods possible and available, and we kind of go with what works for the patients too.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, Ron, Parul? And if there are no questions too, that's absolutely fine. I thank you for being here with me. And, if you want to be in touch with me, go to my website, or you can find me on social media, Dr. Meghna Thakur. I have a Facebook page, and I'm also on Instagram. I like to stay connected and, be in touch with everyone. So with that, we'll, I think, I don't know if a camera is.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So I was like, okay, I should ask question before you hung up. Okay.
Yes, why not? Please ask.
Yeah, I was just hesitating. So my question is, I'm taking levothyroxine, allopathic medicine, 25 micrograms. Yeah, micrograms actually. Yeah. My hormone TSH level is 2.79. So, how much it should be if I can see? I know the ranges given in the scenario request and all. If you get pregnant in the first trimester and all, but according to you, the naturopathy and all that. According to that, how much do you think that it's okay and shouldn't we panic about and all that stuff?
Sure. Absolutely. So, Parul, I would highly encourage you to even listen to my first talk, which was understanding the thyroid. Yeah, because that I really go into an in-depth, information about like the lab ranges and what it should be, because TSH by itself doesn't give me information.
Sure.
I actually look at the T3 and the T4 levels, the total levels and the free levels to see, you know, and 2.79 can be called okay, but more optimally you should be closer to 1, you know, a little bit lower.
Sure, sure.
So I think you will enjoy that talk and you'll understand more. And then since you have the thyroid, I would even recommend you my book, The 7 Steps to Heal Your Thyroid. It's available on Amazon too.
Oh, sure. I'll do that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then Ron said something to us. Yes, sure, Ron. Absolutely. I look forward to hearing from you. Hope you and your family are doing well. So thank you again, everyone, for joining me. And next week, we are going to talk about emotional healing. I'm extremely excited. You know, when I hand my book to my patients or people who buy it, you know, I tell them definitely read chapter number 6. You know, it was something that I needed to learn for myself and grow up. And I think even since I wrote the book, I've come a long way and doing pretty good. And you know, we are going to talk even about energy vampires and all of that. But I've kind of learned now that it's more about how I deal with it rather than saying that somebody else is an energy vampire. It's like, why did I let them take away so much from me, you know? So anyways, it's interesting. I'm going to share some inspirational things, and it's a topic that's close to me. So anybody you think would, you know, benefit from that, please share it. I will be sending out an email and I'll be posting on my social media. And we'll see you again next Saturday. Take care and have a safe 4th.
Thank you, Dr. Thacker.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for joining me every week. I appreciate you guys too. Both of you, you're amazing. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.